Oh, right. Okay. We're in.
Am I on the wrong Zoom?
No, no, you're good. I think
Hang on, I
I
can't hear you.
I had can hear me.
Sorry.
I think this would be a good YouTube video that we can create out of this one if we have got good conversation because we got Ian right here on house. Um, let me check real quick here. Ah, man, the did you get an email by any chance, Jesse? Because the email reminders keep being weird about not going through sometimes. Just goes to spam.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I have no sound.
Let me just send Vlad one email and text to everyone.
We can hear you, Jesse. Can you hear us?
I can hear you through my headphones. I'm trying to see if I can put in my AirPods and hear you that way. But if not, I'll just switch over to my headphones. Hmm. All right.
Can you hear?
Yeah, I can now. Go ahead. I just had to go to my regular headphones.
How many people do you have in REIpreneurs now? That's fun.
It's like well, in the Facebook, it's like 4,000, but in school, which is a new
Yeah.
system we're trying, it's like 1,000.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. Moving them, it's been a little bit of a challenge, but it's going. We still haven't run ads into school. To be honest, I think that I heard that Go High Level has a lot of integrated stuff already. Um, and they're trying to essentially model school, but school is kind of like the hot topic right now. So that's why
Hermosi did that. That's all Hermosi, right? That's the reason.
right.
Entirely because of Hermosi. Yeah.
Are you guys also going in school?
No, we're
Go
all we're all in on Go High Level.
Go High Level. Yeah. I heard there's a few people doing it really well in Go High Level. Like because everything is integrated, you can literally add people super easily.
We're
Uh,
shutting everything else off to just focus on having Go High Level as the single system, which is taking, as a sales guy, takes far longer than I'm happy with. But I'm also not the systems guy, so I have to default to them, to like our marketing guy and people being like, "All right, it's taking longer because this Zapier integration this isn't good on its own in the own system, so we still need a Zapier with this, and that's not working." So, but it's the whole focus is to get everything in Go High Level.
yeah.
Why?
We're definitely experiencing a lot of email deliverability issues um, with the domain that we're using, which is
From
the
school.
no, not from school. School has really good deliverability, but because we do the reminders through Go High Level, but
Uh-huh.
as you know, it doesn't get to people. Like we're getting a lot of
Hmm.
issues. Like I have to pay this guy on email domain and to help with my email domain because it just it just doesn't send, right? And we used to
News
have
to me.
40% open rate and maybe 12%, 9% click-through rate.
It's pretty
And
good.
now it dropped like significantly because the emails don't go through. It's kind of like
Did you?
yeah.
So Google, I know Google was like announcing a big shift to put more things into promotions, and by if they put them into promotions, it also for a lot of people ends up putting into spam. Like promotions is already kind of a dead folder. So Google Gmail itself is putting more things into promotions if it seems like your content is promotional, which is like how everyone's like internal thing. Of course, I'm promoting my stuff. You sign up for my newsletter, but now it's getting out of the inbox into promotions. So one of the things we're doing is we're using is it? I don't remember. It's not Fathom. I don't forget which Otter. We're using Otter, and we're sending out a lot of like value breakdown. We've taught Otter to basically break down podcast episodes to give actionable content and write it in sort of a style that makes sense. And so the marketing guy just feeds it into the AI, adjusts the AI's answer to make sure it's coherent and not like rambly AI googly gook. But as long as he does that, he's able to churn out a lot of like value posts that aren't promotional at all. And we have more value going out than the promotional things. So people see the promotional stuff because they're used to getting it into the inbox. That's been our hack.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Sending here last email because
we had stuff in Kajabi for a long time, and Kajabi, we're literally out of Kajabi. Like we didn't even keep the domain. We took everything out and switched it over. And Kajabi is still sending reminders for call times, which is great. Like we're not paying them a dime. We didn't keep anything. There should be nothing in the system. They're still sending reminders to people who are in the community. So, which is actually like, well, I appreciate you going above and beyond, except that's not the time or the link anymore, and people are still getting it. So it's like, it's an extra level. We're getting deliverability for emails we don't even want going out anymore. And people are like, "Where's this thing? The link doesn't work." I'm like, we can't even shut the account. Like, there's nothing to shut off. We have no access to this. It's still sending out reminders.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've never even heard of this issue happening because it's like it's theoretically costing them something to send that out at scale. But even though we're told them like we don't have an account here, because you can, after you cancel, you can keep everything for like $9 in the backlog. We didn't even do that. We're like, we got everything out, we're done, and it's still sending the reminders.
Huh.
They're assuming the sale on you. They're just going to deliver.
We already left. There's nothing else. It actually makes us more annoyed. It's like assuming the sale. Yeah,
they're fighting to get you back, man. They're fighting to get you back.
It's not going to work. It makes us more annoyed with you. Like,
yeah.
It reminds me of like it's like assuming the sale. Well, I'll never forget when my dad pulled out. He'd just gotten a new BMW. He was a fancy lawyer in Philadelphia, and he pulled up to the. My dad was like, even though he's like, I'm a little old Jewish man. He's not really that Jewish. He's like because he's a little bit Jewish, he loves to tell people he's a little old Jewish man. He's like, I'm a little old Jewish man. Why are people afraid of me? But he was a terrifying lawyer. And I remember I was like 9 years old, and we pulled up to a gas station, and it's downtown Philadelphia. And a guy came up and started squeegeeing the windshield. He's assuming the sale right away, squeegees the windshield right away. And my dad goes, I remember I'm 9 years old in the front seat of this BMW convertible. So it's just like, I'm not protected. And he goes, I'm sorry, do I know you? And the guy goes like, no, man, I just thought. And he goes, no, why the fuck are you touching my car? I remember like, oh my God. So that's my reaction when someone assumes to sell that way. Like, I don't want you squeegeeing my windshield.
Are you from PA originally?
Yeah, I'm from Philadelphia.
Oh, no kidding. Like actual downtown, you grew up downtown Philly?
I grew up in Lower Merion. I grew up just outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to have an office in Upper Darby. So I was out that area a good bit. But
yeah, no, my parents retired. They moved to downtown when I went away to film school. They moved to right across from Reading Terminal. So right across from the convention center, they had a penthouse there, and then they sold that, and they're now in Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah, cool. Did you ever get back to PA? Try not to.
Yeah, I haven't been back. I think since I was 23 years. It's been a while. Yeah. I realized this the other day because my wife got stuck in Philadelphia with the like airline stuff when she was going on a girl trip to Copenhagen. And I was like, you've actually now she spent 2 overnights in Philadelphia. I'm like, you've now spent 2 more nights in Philadelphia than I have since my parents retired. I haven't been back since.
Yeah. It's funny though, because I mean, growing up, even where you did, like, I'm sure you know what Amish people are.
Of course, yeah.
And so like I'm in York, which is like an hour and a half west of Philly. I'm in between like Philly and Gettysburg. Yeah. And I try and explain to people sometimes on the conversion calls that I do for Hessel. I'm like, well, honestly, a lot of the investor buyers in our area are Amish. And there's a lot of people that would be like, what do you mean? Like, is that like a nationality? And I'm like, no, like they ride horse and buggies, like they don't use
They're like
electric.
kind of Dutch, not really.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm trying to explain to some guy that grew up in like San Bernardino, California, what an Amish person is. And
Yeah.
he's like, well, how do you call them if they don't use electricity? I'm like, they can have a cell phone, but it has to be like this type of cell phone and it can't have this type of access. And
Do you tell them to watch Witness, the Harrison
oh,
Ford?
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
yeah. That's might date you a little bit now. Tell people to watch a 80s Harrison Ford movie.
I usually tell them to watch Kingpin. When,
oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
when he goes to the farm, watch Kingpin.
Yeah, yeah.
That'll give you everything you need to know.
So the email finally went out and
Okay.
actually went through. And so
Perfect.
we got someone here, Joshira. Don't be shy. Hi. How are you?
Hey Esteban, real fast. I just wanted to say this to you also while we're on here real quick. I don't know if you have this or not, but if you or somebody on the Hessel team could go through and get like prop stream login type stuff. I know that we have that for that, but I'm thinking honestly, a lot of these affiliate programs, the guys send me messages and ask for stuff. The biggest one's usually prop stream, but some of the other ones lately have been any type of like group code that we have for mailers, things like that. Other types of marketing channels, even like batch leads would probably give you guys one. I know people have asked about that. It's something, I told them yesterday, I was like, I honestly don't know. And I asked Carlos to find out while we were on the call and he said he did and posted it for him, but it seemed like a lot of people were interested in that.
All right. Shashira, you got some value from the course. Awesome. Got 3 properties on the contract in under a month. Sheesh. All right. Let's go. I like your name, by the way, Joshira. I've never heard of it, to be honest. All right. So I guess we can get started. We got a few guests today, and we can finish the day strong and start the month strong. This is August 1st, right? And we have Ian right here, and they're actually going to be moving the entire sales community to a new platform. But because before they were doing like a almost daily thing in another platform, and where they were helping people on sales and conversion, and doing a lot of call reviews and role playing and stuff like that, similar to how we actually do it here, but it's more consistent. And Jesse, obviously you guys know him. He is our one and only $100 million closer. What's up, man?
News to me. I'm waiting on that to hit my bank account.
I'm just trying to boost you,
Yeah, no, that's fine.
All right. So yeah, Jesse obviously helps a lot of our clients inside of the agency to get better at sales. And Ian, he's right hand with Steve Trang from Real Estate Disruptors, but now the show is called Disruptors, and Ian has sales, close more sales, as the podcast. So without further ado, we're doing some few things until more people join.
I've been creeping on your YouTube videos also lately, Ian. You've been the voice you've been in the voice in my ear while I've been lifting weights recently.
That's all I'm hoping for. I'm just trying to be the voice near you while you lift weights.
Well, it plays on my phone through YouTube. So I was sitting there doing bench today and it rolled right into the next video on my playlist. And all of a sudden I've got like 280 pounds above my head and your voice was talking. I was like, Ian? And I realized it was like, we're not on the call. It's this video.
Yeah.
Great value in those though, man. Great value.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys. So now that we have a few people in here, I think we can get started, and we're going to put this thing in the course, and also we're going to put this in YouTube, right? So, and then if we end up doing some sort of document out of this, or some sort of, we create a guide or something, you guys also will be distributed with it. But all right, so we can get started by maybe talking about like last two times we talked about different ways to ask better questions. And what was the last topic last time?
How to
Was
recap.
how to do the recap. Yes. I guess we can talk about like the challenges that we can come up that we can have um when just trying to close a deal, right? This is the objection challenge day, and a lot of people definitely can't get to the close because they can't finish through, right? So I think it will be fun to hear some Jesse's stories or Ian's stories of a few people that try to close, or maybe they closed. Maybe even Joshira has a few of those people in the contract that gave a few objections, or even Bert, and a few objections, and love to know how you guys managed it. But I think it's a good opportunity to even um, just role play or show up here. Cool. So Jesse, tell us last month, how end up the month, and Ian, how you end up the month. Like, what are the few challenges that you had with like closing deals, and how you overcome them?
I'll go first. Last month, I figured out I ended up negative $68,700 for the win. Yes, killing it.
Negative.
No, listen, it was, I can smile about it and laugh because both of the properties are finally gone. And it was like bad to worse to like compounded way worse to, it was like, can we just tear the building down and claim insurance? Like, is that a possibility? And it wasn't. And then two people got stabbed and murdered in front of the building. And I was like, just get it going, sell it, whatever we got to do, just sell it. Like, and when I got an offer, I was like, yep, deal. No brainer on this one. So I packaged like 4 properties together, got rid of 2 that were major losses, and was able to offset some things. But last month, as far as Hessel stuff goes, finished out with 3 contracts. One of them's already assigned for 18 grand. One of them's pending, it's assigned, but we're working our way through title. I put that one under contract originally at 90 and then had to bump it up to 100. I dispoed it for 122.5 and then ended up calling the seller back yesterday just to give them a heads up as to where we were moving through the title process. And as we were on the phone, we talked about this yesterday in the group call. As I was on the phone, he was like, so what's going on with it? And I was kind of explaining the process. And I said to him, this is certainly, I just need you to work with me on time. I know that I told you I was going to try and have this done within the next 2 weeks. I said, but unfortunately, the attorney's saying it may be 2 to 3 weeks. I said, so I just want you to be confident and knowing that, we're working as fast as we can. We're making our way through this, and just bear with me. And he said, well, I really appreciate that. And I said, well, it certainly threw a wrench into the ball game. I said, when we originally went under contract, we were at 90. I said, and then, your sister got involved and we got it bumped up to 100. I said, but now with all this extra legal work, it's certainly making it a little bit more difficult. And without me even asking for it, he just goes, so you want to go back to the 90? And I said, I'd appreciate, I already have a dispo for 122.5. So I was like, I'd appreciate that. And he was like, yeah, I'm okay with that. Just send it over. So we did an addendum. And then I had another one that was just a small deal. That was an $8,000 deal.
Let's go, man. So
those were my Hessel leads.
Yeah, and but pretty sure for even other marketing channels, like, did you have any trouble locking them on the contract? Or do you feel like maybe some of those people that you actually closed, you can learn from? Like, any like lessons learned that, hey, like, this seller gave me a lot of issues, but I overcame them, right? Or even Ian, I'm not sure like how often you guys are ultimately getting major objections, but I think that we can definitely discuss it. Actually, one thing that I wanted to talk with you guys about is a few people messaged me last month saying, how do I reduce the chances of getting my contracts canceled? And to me, it's more, it's an acquisition process issue, and also an operational issue after you lock up the deal, right? So
Yeah.
we can talk about,
You mean the seller's canceling the contract?
No, but like having having the contract not go through, right? Just ultimately it didn't succeed,
But
right?
what's the reason for it? It depends why. Like, is it that they canceling it because they ran numbers wrong? Is it because they couldn't move it? Is it because the seller had remorse and they talked to they forced it? It depends why.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
That's the
where I
thing.
was going with it too. Like, it's a big difference between if the seller rescinds or if we fail to perform. Like,
Right.
failure to perform, that's a lot of acquisition side issues. If it's the seller rescinding, I mean,
Well, I can also
some,
talk about
something got messed up.
our most a thing we train on regarding something the acquisitions manager should do after the contract is signed to
Mm,
prevent the inevitable. It's usually referred to in sales as the buyer's remorse. In this case, it's seller's remorse, right? It's the idea of they've changed their mind, they want to move forward, they don't want to move forward with you. It could be for something as common as anyone who's been in real estate more than 10 minutes will know. Someone else came in with a different offer that was pennies higher, right? Or sometimes a lot higher. Regardless, they're still they're still on lists, or they had already responded to marketing, or they get reached out to in some way, shape, or form, and someone offers them more when they tell them I have it agreed upon for this amount, and now they want to come back and cancel because of a higher offer or because of some other reason. So what we train on is I can demonstrate it and then I can talk about it. I think that's usually a good way to go through it. So Jesse, will you role play with me?
Sure.
Okay. So you can be the homeowner in this case. So we'll go through. Let's just say we've agreed on everything. Now we're wrapping up the set. We'll make it virtual because I assume most people are acquiring this over the phone. You know, actually, Esteban, what the majority of your members are they going in person or are they locking stuff up virtually?
I know a few crazy people that do still go in person and they receive like 60 leads, 60 appointments a month. And a few of them are our clients, but majority I know they do virtual, you
Okay,
know?
it changes very just a tiny bit depending on because it just really changes the language. The real focus of the process is the same. I would just make adjustments to the language depending on whether it's virtual or in person. So we'll start with in person because that was how it was everything designed, and I'll talk to you through the adjustments you would make while virtual. Because most people go, I could never say that. I'm on the phone. I'm not in person, but it's such a minor adjustment. Once you understand how small of a tweak it is to change from being across from someone in the living room or at the kitchen table compared to on the phone. Hopefully, it unlocks how similar running a type process is, regardless of the circumstances of buying anyway. So let's just say we're in the home then, Jesse. So I'm across from you at the kitchen table, which is where we like to buy homes. We've already signed the contract, and so I would say, uh, uh, Jesse, I really appreciate your time here. Before I go now, I have kind of an odd question, which I don't mean to be too direct with, but this contract here, I have to ask you, if someone were to, let's say, knock on your door tomorrow and we have it locked up for or agreed upon closing in 30 days for 135,000 and someone knocks on your door tomorrow and says, "Oh, I'll pay you 140,000." How would you respond to that?
I'd probably tell them, that I had already signed a paper with you, and I'd see if, there's something they could do about it. I mean, I'd like the extra money if I could.
Okay. I was afraid you would say that. Honestly, if someone just verbally saying they would pay you 5,000 more right now, I would want to tear this contract up right now. Because we're going to go do is we're going to go invest a bunch of money, put money aside, start running title, and going through that process. If someone just verbally saying a number is enough where this legal document sort of doesn't mean anything to you anymore, and now we're starting negotiations after we've started the process. I'd rather just rip this contract up right now rather than go start that process. Should I rip this contract up?
No, no, I mean, unless you can do the 140,000.
Oh, I'm a little confused. I'm saying I thought we agreed upon 135.
We did, but you're saying, should you rip it up? And I'm saying the only way you should rip it up is if we could do the 140.
I didn't even think I could do 135. They're probably gonna get mad at me back at the office. I come back and tell them that now. But if
I'm
you
just kidding
hear
with you.
130 verbally, if you hear 140 and that's enough to now you don't want to do this anymore, we should just tear up this contract.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time. No, I'm good with the number.
Okay, I really appreciate that. So the approach there is once someone's taken the Jesse was being playful, of course. Usually, these people in these dire circumstances, especially if we're in the home, locking a property up for significantly lower than on market value, is when they've just had the emotional decision to decide to actually sign their home. The hardest part is signing the document, whether it's in person or I'm sending it virtually, right? Like, but if it's in person, I can use the tear up idea. Uh, Once they've made that commitment to do it, they want to be congruent with that decision. And so instead, I'm offering to take it away by talking hypothetically, if someone were to verbally offer them more. And if they go, oh, no, I know we have an agreement. I go, good. If you had said you would entertain it, I would offer to tear it up. Either way. So I still make this point because I want to say, now that you've chosen to sell your home, you feel like I've signed it, we're done. To tear up that decision feels like wait, no, this was all for nothing. You just asked me about my pain. You just asked me about my motivation. We talked for 45 plus minutes, and now you're just going to rip up the document. No, don't tear it up. And usually the act of verbalizing not to tear it up helps bolster them enough against that process going forward. We found that consistently. If it was virtual, the only thing is you can imagine, Jesse, it's not a huge shift, right? It's less like, oh, if someone knocked on your door, someone called you tomorrow and wanted to offer you 140, what would you say? Well, I would want to entertain it. Or no, I wouldn't. Oh, good. I was going to say, just print out this document and rip it right up. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to go invest a bunch of money, run title, get the process started. And if someone just verbally saying a number that was hired to you over the phone would make you want to cancel the legal document and the money and time and energy we're going to put towards this, it's not even worth us doing it. Should we just print this document out and rip it up? No, don't rip it up. I get that. I understand. You're going to start the process. You've been very good with me. That's usually the type of response we get. So by getting them to verbalize, don't rip up the contract, which we always do when we pull away like that at the end. I mean, I've never had anyone go, yeah, never mind. I've just never, ever, ever had it. We've never had it happen. By the time we finished our whole sales process, got them to agree to want to do this, sign it, and then go, oh, you're going to verbally entertain more. Should I rip it up? Yeah, rip it up. We wouldn't have signed the contract if they were that willy-nilly. So by the time they're willing to move forward with us and actually agree to sell their home over a legal document, to get them to verbalize, no, don't cancel it. No, don't rip it up. No, I don't want to do this, helps bolster them against the sort of buyer's or seller's remorse that could creep in while, our transaction coordinator is keeping in touch with them. And then what I would do right then is then give a clear vision of next step. The last thing you want to have happen is, even if you've done that, is now them go, wait, what's next? Okay, well, someone will call me tomorrow then, if I didn't tell them. And then they're thinking, wait, they didn't call me tomorrow? Was this a scam? Even though I thought I should have told them someone will call you after the weekend, right? But just because I didn't make next steps clear, by leaving that empty space and uncertainty, that uncertainty for so many people fosters into doubt about your ability to perform, about your legitimacy, about whether or not you can really get this done. The best way to guard against that is to give clear next steps and paint the picture over the next 30, 45 days, whatever you need to do after they've already taken the commitment to sign, so they know what to expect. If they are uncertain and they have doubt, that will creep into thinking you can't perform or they made a mistake.
Yeah, I was going to say along the lines of with what Ian was just saying also, I think a lot of times, Esteban, if you are having a situation where a client is having that many cancellations, I mean, where I came from, exactly what Ian just did, we called it bringing them out of the clouds, kind of bringing them from that emotional, high plateau of making the decision to, yes, I'm going to go through with this transaction, to now starting to bring the temperature back down a little bit. Have them be comfortable with everything, make sure that they understand what the next steps in the process are. And then once they do know that, with what Ian was just saying, I think another very critical part is your actual follow-up with that, whether it's you as the whether you're doing it as the acquisitions manager, or if you're turning it over to a transaction coordinator, if you're being your own transaction coordinator. A lot of times, in my opinion, the reason that contracts have issues is usually because of poor communication post agreement. They feel like, and I see it happen all the time. Guys get somebody wrapped up on a 30-day contract and they're like, okay, we're going to get it over the title company tomorrow and we'll be in touch. Well, by the 20th day, these people are thinking, all right, am I leaving this house? Am I supposed to be packing everything? Am I really going to get paid in 10 days? Because nobody's ever talked to them about anything. Whereas if you literally just set it up as a real simple email process, we always did a TC handoff. I know I've shared it before with the weekly group thing. It was just a real simple blanketed email introducing the transaction coordinator. It was me sending it, the TC getting a carbon copy, and to the seller. And it just said, I wanted to thank you for making the decision to sell your home to Easy Exit. We're going to strive to make sure that this is a smooth, seamless, and easy transaction for you. Should you have any questions along the way, here's your point of contact. From this point moving forward, Stephanie is going to be your point of contact, and this is what she's going to be looking for when she speaks to you. We'd send off that email, and then right away the TC would fire off their own email. Thanks so much for the introduction, Ian. I look forward to assisting you guys in the sale of your home. She would go over what we would need for closing. We'd get the copy of their driver's license a while. We'd get a payoff authorization for the mortgage, all that type of stuff. And the people actually felt like there was a lot of legitimacy to the process because of it, because everything was handled systematically.
So many investors are afraid to contact the homeowner afterwards because they think they'll want to cancel and change their mind if they talk to them. Like, I already got him across the line. I got him emotional. It's the exact wrong mindset. The lack of communication is what's more likely to cause them to change their mind. And this is true across any sales industry, is that more contact after the sale, after the decision, is always better because you can also ask about their hesitations and deal with them. Would we rather deal with the objection on the call with them or have them deal with their objection with their spouse that night when I'm not around? It's the same principle of them getting uneasy and being unclear about the process. So always err on more communication rather than less, because obviously if you call them every day, you'll probably annoy them. But for the most part, more communication is better than less. So if you have any doubt about I wonder what they're thinking, call them. If you think, oh, it's like somebody were going to call them yesterday. Oh, no one did? Oh, I'll call them tomorrow. No, call them right now. The immediacy of the contact is hugely helpful because, like Jesse said, if they're not clear about what next steps are, these people are in circumstances where a quick cash offer makes sense. They want this instead of a real estate agent in the usual transaction because of the certainty of the process. If you understand the reason to go forward with you rather than be on the market for 6 months, if you are not in contact with them, you are not playing to the emotional desire for why they wanted to sell to you for a cash offer or whatever your offer is to begin with. The certainty of an investor saying you're walking away with this is in this time frame and you'll pick up a check is what people want. So if you're not in contact with them, you're operating separate from the reason they wanted to go forward with you, right? It's like someone buying a Maserati because they wanted a comfy family car. It's like, that's not the reason you buy a Maserati. It's like, if you're trying to have someone go forward with an investor, they want the certainty of that process. And so if you're lacking communication, you're depriving them of the whole reason they chose to sell to you.
So, yeah. So Ian, in your opinion, to remove as many objections as possible before we sign the contract, well, there's different processes, but to remove as many remorse or backing up or trouble or whatever it is that we could have before the moment of closing, or actually to go through to have a high success rate, what are a few key elements or a few key actions? And if we were to list them down, like obviously Jesse talked about a follow-up email, obviously being able to connect it right away with the TC, having a great client experience, having the reinforcement if they were going to get another offer, how would that be, and having that verbal thing. But what other things would make it reinforce that specific close?
Jesse, I mean, everything you listed and what Jesse talked about is so important. That is the like technical aspect of what actually the cadence of a follow up and post sales should look like, and is incredibly important to running a successful business. That all of that actually comes after the most important thing, in my opinion, which is actually understanding their reason for wanting to go with you. I even brought it up before. If you understand their reason and their motivation, you can position what your solution is as solving exactly what's important to them. As I said, if someone wants certainty and you're lacking communication, you're lacking certainty, right? So the amount of times I've trained someone and then they're telling me about the sale while it went, belly up, what happened? And I ask what seems to me like the most obvious first question: what was their reason for wanting to sell to you at that price in the first place? And that person has no idea. They're like, oh, they just wanted to they wanted to move. Like, well, what? Like, what are you talking about? Because if you understand, like, there's only about between 4 and 6% of homes in the United States sell off market on a calendar year. That means we're all competing for the same 6 to 4%. The other 94, 96% are selling with a real estate agent. They're on the MLS. You can find them on Zillow. They're going through the normal process. So for someone to qualify to be worthy of being in that percentage, they have some reason. It could be as simple as being freaked out by the lawsuit about real estate agents, and they just don't want to pay a commission because they think agents are scum. It could be as simple as that. That's not even a real reason to move forward. That's an emotional justification for wanting to move forward with an investor. But that's a reason they could hold as important to them. If you don't understand the reason they want to move forward with you, you can't actually position yourself as the true solution. You can say, I can pay you that number, and they go, great, I like that number. And that's fine. You can get contracts that way. And I want to be clear. You can never understand the real reason someone wants to sell and still make more money than anyone else in your life. You can anyone else you can do a sales process in a suboptimal way in real estate and still make buku bucks. But you're running a substandard process compared to best practices. And the best practice is actually knowing the emotional reason for why they want to sell to you right now. Why me? Why now? Why this way? If you couldn't write a 5-paragraph essay about their motivation and the emotional implications behind that motivation, you will always be substandard to someone like me who comes in there who can actually solve their emotional pain, not dealing with it logically and hoping it puts a Band-Aid over their emotional issues.
So one thing that we actually do in our businesses, for example, once they go through an entire sales process, and we gather like a few key points, right? Like obviously we gather their needs and we gather their wants, but we know exactly where they are at, in terms of financially, what type of person this is, what are their true motivations, challenges, pains, what's their goals, what their actual goals were, deep dive. And there's a series of notes that we actually write it down. And if the close actually happens, we actually transfer over this to the next step. So for example, in this case, for service businesses, client success or account managers are basically transaction coordinators, because they take care of the rest of the transaction, right?
Definitely.
So how important is it to actually grab every single piece of note, have it displayed, organized, so that we understand the seller so well that we can transfer over that relationship to the TC, and that TC can not have to restart the relationship, but continue the relationship, and somehow also customize the experience of the seller so that ultimately it matches what the sales process was.
Yeah, I want to be careful here because I'm sure there's plenty of solo operators here that are hearing like, I'd love to have a transaction coordinator. That sounds great. To be clear, you don't need this to get deals and make a lot of money. But if you have a setup this way and you're not doing exactly what Esteban said, you're running a suboptimal process. You're running a less than optimal business. So if you have the ability to have employees, or you're working at a company and you're trying to get better, like whatever your situation is, that process is the way to do it, to make sure that the customer experience is congruent throughout, and what is important to them is passed on to the next people. You might be a sole operator who's just doing this from your bedroom, And don't go like, well, how am I supposed to do that? Well, you could think you can't do that exact thing right now because maybe you're doing this by yourself. But what's the principle that's important there? What's the principle behind what we're saying, which is a consistent emotional experience so every person at a company could understand what's important to a seller. If that's the goal, you should embody how can I do that if I'm the only one following up? So that means take good notes, review the notes before each call, as if you were every stage in the process. If you're a solo operator or you're partnering with one or two people, that means you still should try and follow as close to the ideal process as possible. You're just wearing multiple hats through that process. So you might be the lead manager, the cold caller, the acquisitions manager, the TC, you might be everything, but still try and keep that process as close to based on how few people you have or if it's just you as possible, because that's the right type of process to get someone consistently over the line the most amount of times.
Yeah.
Can I talk about that for a second as from a solo
ahead.
operator point of view? So I'm a solo operator right now, but I still do a decent amount of volume for just being by myself. So my process, the way that it works is, let's say Ian is my seller. I'm going to wholesale this deal. After I get the returned agreement back, the first email that they're going to get is I'm going to be sending a basic email saying, Ian, I wanted to let you know, good news. We received back the agreement of sale and it's now been forwarded over to the title company that I use. And this is your point of contact at that title company. I included her in on this email and here is her phone number. Should you have any questions during this process, you can always feel free to reach out to me again at my phone number, or you can also contact her at the law office of blank, blank, blank. And I put in their phone number. And then I say, I'm still working on some other details. I'll give you a call either later today or tomorrow to touch base. And once I've received confirmation that they haven't received, I'm setting myself up for the next call with him because I do like to touch base with the person, usually about 24 hours after we sign the original agreement. Let's say it was like tonight, I'm in Ian's home. We come to the agreement. We fill everything out. We get to the end. Ian, I'd rather rip this thing up and walk away friends than ever have to come back and worry about an upset seller. Are we good to go forward? No, don't rip it up. Great. And then I'm going to tell him the next process you're going to hear from me is once we have it uploaded into our system and it's on our computer, we're going to send it over to the title company. Once we get confirmation of that, you're going to get an email from me. Tomorrow, once I hear back from the title company that they've received it and they've started the title search, I'll probably reach out to you just to let you know where we're at in the process. Then the next follow-up call that I'm going to call Ian about, I'm going to let him know that the EMD has been sent to the title company already. They've received everything and they're already working on it. So I'm super excited. We're going to be able to get this done on the time frame of, we're going to be able to get this done in the 45 days that you were looking for. So everything's moving forward great with that. And there was one other question I had for you before I walked out last night. I just forgot to ask it. Would it be okay with you if maybe later in this week or maybe even beginning of next week at some point, if I had to swing through there with just one of my other investor partners or our construction manager, that wouldn't be an issue for you, would it? Just so we could kind of take a quick peek around, look at maybe some of the renovations that we're going to have to plan. They usually say no, and I say fantastic. Well, listen, I'll let you know later on in the week, as far as what day that might be, something like that. Are you going to be around this weekend? And the reason I'm doing that is I'm setting it up if I'm doing like in-person stuff. A lot of times in certain smaller markets that I've seen, there is a good bit of investors that want to go out and walk properties. They want to actually physically see it. I'm in one of those markets like Lancaster, Pennsylvania. They're not there yet as far as buying properties off pictures. They want to come in, they know it's filled with trash, they know there's mouse poop everywhere, and these are Amish guys that want to come walk through and see the mouse poop. You know what I mean? And they're going to come through and do all that stuff. So I'm kind of setting it up to bring that next group of people through there with me. But again, it's just some communication. In addition to that, these things, it's one of my company Yetis that I have logos printed on. Soon as somebody signs an agreement, they get a little thank you card. I can't grab one. It's up in my office right now. I send them out a little thank you card. The mugs cost me $4.50. The postcard cost me like, I don't know, 30 cents, maybe something like that. And I bang out a quick handwritten note. Just wanted to say thanks so much. Here's a nice little koozie to keep you cool over the summer months. If you need anything, here's my number. Please feel free to give me a call. And we send that out the next day too, so that I know within the first 3 days of them signing an agreement with me, they've gotten another email from me. They've gotten a phone call from me saying that the title paperwork is already moving forward. They've gotten me, I've already asked them, would it be okay if I come back out to the property if I need to, get them to say yes to that. And then I also know that within 2 to 3 days, USPS is going to be dropping a small little, flat rate box off on their porch. And it cost me a total of, I don't know, 16 bucks, maybe $18 to help secure a $20,000 profit deal. And I was doing that even when we were doing everything virtually. I sent out coffee mugs in the wintertime, Yetis in the summertime, that type of stuff, just because. And I know it doesn't necessarily apply to real estate, but it is one of those things where if you think of realtors' whole mantra is keep your name in front of their face. The more that they're thinking about you, the more likely when they go to sell, they're going to consider maybe giving you a call. And I kind of trying to use the same approach for myself. I want them to not feel like if they see me in a grocery store, I'm not going to hide behind the chip aisle. Like I want them to feel good about coming up and being like, "Hey, Jesse, how's it going? Yeah, you were the guy that bought my house from me." This is the community I live in, man. So I'm not out here trying to just shit on my own reputation. I want to leave a positive impression on people. And that's being from a solo operator point of view. Like, I tell some people even sometimes I don't have a huge company.
Even as a solo operator, a lot of people don't even, that's going above and beyond, right? That's
I
actually
try to.
doing the things that, okay, let's say you do lock it up on good terms, under good numbers, but the seller is still like kind of, thinking about it. Like, was it a good decision? Should I just also look out for other offers? Should I, still looking this the other way, even though I just signed a contract, there's still this fear. Like all those things enhance your essentially removes the drop off percentage that you would have if you don't do those things. It is applicable to any business, like a thank you card, man. Like what you're saying, it goes a long way. Even at some point, getting so accustomed to giving the seller something that is so accustomed to them that if the seller is, for instance, I don't know, a fan of a football team during the conversation, and you're able to send them like a little something about that football team because it reminds them that you guys had a quality conversation. You already are locking up the seller even further, but people are not willing to do that because they don't really understand that it's not also not only goes a long way, it improves the brand, but also it actually helps you with your numbers, right? Helps you with your closing percentage at the end of the day if you lock up the deal with a good number. And obviously, I'm pretty sure there's other operational circumstances that could go wrong on why a contract doesn't go through. But that's huge in business.
Very much so. Can I make one suggestion? Because I love that process, Jesse. I have one. It's such a tiny suggestion because I love it. I love it. My only suggestion is after everything you said, before you ask I have one more question, ask before the announcing you have one more question about the investor or the construction manager walking the property in a week or so. Ask, hey, I do this a lot. I want to make sure we're on the same page. So just to make sure we're on the same page with everything, would you be willing to share with me what you just heard? And making them verbalize their understanding of, I'm going to get an email after you send it to the title company. Because the amount of times we've explained a thing and then just moved on, and like I call the person next to like, hey, where'd that thing come from? I was like, wait, I didn't say that would happen. And so I'm trying to do my very best to get them to verbalize. It's such a minor, because I love everything about your setup. Just one little thing before that last question, making them verbalize what they'd heard and explaining the reason you're asking it is to make sure you're on the same page. You can even blame yourself. Sometimes I talk too fast, so it doesn't seem like a condescending question. That's the only thing, because I love that. I love that how clear the next steps are in regards to also setting up a follow-up call. That's fantastic, or a follow-up visit. That's fantastic.
Thanks. And honestly, the other thing I would say with that also is the one thing that I've noticed is the more communication, and this isn't just like now, this has been for the last 6 years of doing this and 15 years before that. But the other thing that I've noticed is I don't think a lot of people, especially in this business, they don't try and focus on getting referrals. In the business I came from, you lived and died and thrived off referrals. But I've realized that there's really no reason I can't ask people for referrals now in this. And I even just say, hey, I understand, maybe they wouldn't want to sell, but have you thought of all your, especially when I'm talking to like older folks that have been in the house for 50 years, they know all the other old folks in the neighborhood. And when I start talking to them and I try and make the process so smooth, and then they get, 2 mugs and a little t-shirt, a thank you card type of thing, I know I'm going to talk to the people again. I always ask, just out of curiosity, if you were me and you do what I do for a living, who else in the neighborhood would you talk to? Who else do you think might consider selling their house? If not now, maybe in the next 2 to 5 years, and I'll pick up. Have you talked to Janice down around the corner at 313? Well, her husband died back in 2012 and her son doesn't, like they give you all that type of stuff to where if you're willing to be a little bit organic and do more of a driving for dollars or door knocking type thing, you can roll one deal into multiple deals a lot of times. I had a huge deal like that a few years ago. I was buying a single family house in Hanover, Pennsylvania. It was a little kind of crap box of a house. And I asked the guy, I was like, hey, if you were me, who else would you talk to? Who would you see about selling their property? And he said, well, did you talk to Chuck that owns the 6 unit across the street on the corner? I said, no, I don't know Chuck. And he said, Chuck from down the street at blah, 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 some garage that was down the street. I was like, no, I don't know him. He said, go down and talk to him. I bet you'd sell that place. I get this 6 unit for 100. We put it under contract for 168,000. And I'm standing in the guy's like automotive garage shop. Didn't even see the place. The guy was like, yeah, I'm willing to sell that. I don't even like the place. I bought it for my ex-wife, blah, blah, blah. Put it under contract for 168, dispoed it 15 minutes later for 255. Easiest deal in the world. And I picked it up completely organically, just asking somebody, who else would you talk to around here?
Yeah.
Same as when you go on an appointment, you should always 3-point canvas. The 5-point canvas, the neighbors on either side, 3 homes across the street. Hey, I was just over looking at Esteban's home. He wasn't sure if he was going to move or not. Decided that we were able to give him such a great offer he wanted to. Just wanted to drop by while I'm in the area. Have you guys ever considered selling? Obviously, if it's a gorgeous house that, 2 brand new cars in the driveway, they might not have the same motivation. But if it's a house with real tall weeds and, looks like the Ghostbusters don't even want to go there, then I'll stop by and knock on the door.
Yes. That's huge, man. And put that process in every single, if you guys have closers, put that process of asking for a referral at the moment of whenever they're hot, whenever they're like, I got that under contract, or even if you didn't get it under contract, but they loved it, they liked it, and you feel like they could give you a referral, putting that process of asking for a referral is huge. And you can, if they have the number, that'll be great. Ask for their number, ask for their email.
True story. I'll let you go with this, but true story. In June, I bought a property called 825 Hill Street, New York. It was a lead that I got in from Hessel back when in 2021, right? I get the lead in from Hessel back in 2021 with Premier. Go on it. Don't buy the house. Can't get the deal. Just could not get the deal wrapped up. Sent the woman a handwritten little thank you card. I always keep thank you cards in my truck. I'll bang out a thank you card. Thanks so much for your time. Sorry we couldn't come to an agreement. And I know I'm going to still try and follow up with them, things like that. But it seemed like it was a pretty hard no when she said it. Anyways, 2 years and wait, no, this has been 3 years and 4 months later because it was dated. Yeah, it was dated from the end of February of 2021. So 3 years and 4 months later, I get a phone call completely out of blue in the beginning of June. She died. She was an elderly woman. She still had my postcard magnet on the fridge. And the son came over to deal with the estate and found it and called and was just like, hey, I was just curious if you were still interested in buying this house. My mom passed away. I ended up getting it. Thank you. But yeah, I put it under contract at 68,000. I disposed it for 108. So it was a great deal. And it was just, one of those like pennies from heaven types of situations. You're not expecting it. You didn't get a lead in, you didn't get a notification, and all of a sudden some bags of cash just fall out of the sky for you.
Yeah. True story. So we got Joshi actually. We ignored her the entire way. Wow, we're such horrible human beings. It's about a deal that She had a seller remorse. Oh,
Hi guys, good night. Sorry that I was in and out. I have my kids in the background. So I have a little bit of a shit show of a case. So the one that filled out the form, the lead came in through Hensel Media. He bought the property of his best friend. They did a quick claim deed, never filed it. So once we're looking in the county, it's his best friend's property. His ex-wife died. They never did probate. She's on the deed, but then the best friend has a quick claim deed. Now we have it on the contract. We went back, did the contract with the actual person that's on the deed with the county. However, the best friend is involved. So it's kind of it's a mess. So then we're telling him like, hey, you have to go through probate. We already have it on the contract and we already assigned it to a buyer. It's already entitled. We're supposed to close within a couple days, but we had to extend it because of the probate. However, now I did have to call him because the probate is going to cost $3,500. Now we are willing to pay for that, right? Either take it out of the proceeds or just take it out of our assignment fee, which is fine. However, I think it was Jesse, Ian, you mentioned that you have to know the motivation of why they're selling. So he needed quick cash. Now, whenever I called him today, he was like, this sounds like a shit show. Can we just cancel the contract? And then he goes on to tell me like, hey, like I needed the quick cash whenever I called you guys. Now I don't want to sell the property because I don't want to wait. And I already got the cash that I needed. However, we still have a contract in place. So he doesn't want to deal with the probate for his best friend. And he doesn't want to pay the money, which I already told him we'll be covering that cost. But it's like, how do you get him to stop from backing out from the contract? We already filed a memorandum, though. Like I said, it's a shit show.
Yeah, what do you need quick cash for?
That I didn't know. That I didn't get it.
Right. So like that's a lot of people have trouble asking that next level question, right? Because we feel like that's going to be personal. I don't want to do that. But if my concern is if I don't actually know what you need the money for, that something like this can happen and I lose a deal and I don't even know how to solve it. So just because the reality is he might have needed quick cash and he got quick cash, but he didn't actually solve this issue. He might have just put a Band-Aid on a wound. And so I don't know that unless I actually know what he needed the cash for. Does that make sense? So it's like, it's hard for me. The reason I'm always trying to figure out what's actually going on is so that I can be prepared when stuff like this happens. Because stuff like this happens every 5 deals. There's something that's like, all right, how does this is like a live grenade. What am I supposed to do with this? And so to protect against that, as long as I actually know what's important, there's plenty of deals you can close without actually knowing what's important to them and what their pain is and why they have that pain, how long the pain's been going on for, how's that been affecting them. But to make sure you know that, it gives you a better chance of success for those people anyway, and it also protects you when this type of thing falls out. So it's hard for me to tell you exactly what to say or what to ask without knowing what the reason he needed the cash for. My biggest thing I can think is calling and starting with one of my favorite follow-ups, which is like basically like, hey, I'm calling you. I'll just call you Shira for the point of the role play. Like, Shira, I'm calling you. I'm sorry. I feel like I owe you an apology. And people go, what for? What do you owe me an apology for? We've talked all this time. I know we bought your property and now you got this probate situation. And I don't even, now you argue they had needed cash before and you got cash another way. Here's the real thing. I realized I didn't even ask you what was the reason you needed to sell your property for. I don't even know what's going on with you right now. And that's my mistake because I don't even know if there's another way I can help you or what else we can do. Because I don't even really know what's really going on. By introducing the topic, by blaming yourself through an apology is incredibly powerful. It's like a version of falling on your sword to get people to open up. Calling with saying, I feel like I owe you an apology. Not, I'm sorry, not I owe you an apology. I feel like I owe you an apology. What? Why? We talked about you had this X problem and you were trying to do Y and then Z was happening. I realized I forgot to ask you a really important question. I'm leaving that silence. What was the question? I don't even know what you needed cash for. I don't even know if there's any way I can even help you. And then they can they're coming to my rescue in telling me what's really going on, which helps me actually figure out what's going on. If I call with as an expert authority who's like, I didn't even ask, tell me why you needed that cash. It's raising sales resistance. So by calling with being like, oh man, I feel like I owe you an apology. I didn't even ask what was important to you. And so then there's so many reasons he might have needed the cash. It's hard for me to paint the scenario. But outside of that is basically asking for, we need to figure out what's going on. If the problem's going to come back again, if the problem's truly fixed or temporarily fixed, did he borrow that money, right? And so the whole thing would be like trying to get a commitment. If I can make sure that you could still get quick cash and it's as easy a process as possible so that we can keep this legal contract and not have to get difficult, is that even worth figuring out what that would look like so that we can deal with whatever problem he says he needs or any problem that's coming up in the future? Asking a question like that. That's my best recommendation without knowing more circumstances.
That is perfect. That helps out a lot. Thank you so much, Ian.
Sure. Jesse, what are your thoughts on that?
If that doesn't work, threaten to sue. I will sue you back to oblivion. No, I'm just joking. Don't do that.
No, my boss actually had that approach. And I'm actually supposed to call the seller back in 30 minutes because he was like, if not, to hell with it. Tell them that we already filed the memorandum and they're getting sued. And I don't want to go with that approach.
No, it's not a great way to get, because now you're just starting a battle, and you might be able to you might be able to do a thing that still feels like it's solving the problem without, because the other thing is once you start that, there's absolutely no saving it, right? How different is that? Is the emotional experience for the seller from, you apologize, I didn't even really ask what was going on with you, to we're going to file a memorandum and it's going to be hell to pay. I hope you lawyer up, asshole. Like, it's a totally different sensation. One is collaborative, the other is combative. Obviously, Jesse's joking, but making sure that you are in favor of the collaborative is at all times, even if it's combative, trying to make how can I make sure this doesn't go to, I want to help you. How can I make sure this doesn't go to court? Because I feel like my hands are tied right now with the situation. What can we do? Making it, even the combative conversation, collaborative, keeps them involved in trying to solve their own problem and keeps them engaged rather than going, well, all right, I'll lawyer up then. Call me, figure it out. I'll call the Times and tell me you lied to me, because it's the whole thing, right? Versus like, how can we make sure this doesn't go to, the last thing I want to do is get legal. That's not fun for anyone. What can we do? Right? Like, that approach is always how you get more deals than the next guy, is keeping it feeling collaborative with the seller.
And along those same lines also, just because of the way that I speak and my own mannerisms and things like that, for me, I'm pretty open and direct with the sellers, Yashira, as far as trying to build some solid rapport to try and break down that sales resistance. And just speaking in normal dialect of how I talk, I can't tell you how many times I've had to say to a seller, after we agree to something, stuff's already in the title, and then all of a sudden something goofy goes on, something wacky happens, they get pissed off about something. There's been countless times where I've just gotten on the phone with them, and I'll start just as a casual conversation, like what Ian said, where you're kind of slipping it into that, I feel like I really owe you an apology. And with me, a lot of times I just say, Ian, can I ask you something? And yeah, I say, what's really going on? Like, when I was talking to you before, you wanted to sell the property. I wanted to buy the property. We did the agreement. We sent it over to the title company. They've done all this work. We owe them thousands of dollars worth of stuff. And all of a sudden you're trying to back out. I mean, that's not the Ian that I talked to before. So what's really going on? And I think Ian's approach is much better, much smoother. But mine is just like, I just want them to know that, look, this is not personal. Like, I'm not trying to be the attack. It's like they always say, you attack the problem, not the person, right? So I want them to feel like, look, whatever the real problem is, even if that real problem was initially solved, like what Ian was said, or did it just have a Band-Aid put on it? Let's get down to the root cause, So the property was going to get taken because you owed taxes. Gotcha. And now the taxes are paid. Understand. Do you have the money to pay next year's taxes? Would the money in your pocket be better than the tax bill next year? However I need to address it, I can do so at that time. But until we get down to the root cause of what was the money for to begin with, what was this dire emergency? Because it's kind of rare that you can be like, hey, you want to sell my house? Yeah, I'll give you 100,000. Cool, give it to me right now. No, it goes through title, and they have to make sure that you're allowed to sell the property and things like that. We've been working as fast as we can, but I can't make it go any faster than what it's going to go. And trust me when I tell you, if there's anybody that's been pushing and pulling for this thing to get across the finish line, it's me, because I was trying to help you out. But I just need to know, what's going on really, so that I can figure out our best solution. Because like I told you on that initial phone call, I'm your advocate. I'm here to help, that type of approach. I'm not saying say all of that to them, but that's the vibe that I want to give off. Is I'm here to assist you. I'm here to work for your business.
That was
Anybody
great,
else?
guys. I got 2 pages worth of notes, so thank you so much.
Keep kicking ass.
I love the plural phrasing. Our solution, how can we fix this? That helps keep that collaborative approach very much so.
Yeah, and also just remember, Yashir, it's never you, your, that type of stuff. It's always we, us, and our. What can we do to solve this issue for you? Let me know what can we do here to make sure that you feel as whole as possible, and that we were able to get across the finish line together, where it's a win-win for both of us. That type of attitude.
I love it. Thank you, guys.
All right, guys.
Cool.
So I think this was great. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. So we are adding actually one call with my business partner about hiring, about recruiting, all that fun stuff, finding great quality talent, because you got to buy back your time, right? So we're adding another call, and we're slowly going to be adding more calls to this fun mastermind, to the point where I want to be doing some hot seats for those that do want to be in a hot seat, which is basically being put in the middle and present about your business, and then maybe get some good valuable stuff. But you got to be super vulnerable about that. Actually, Jesse, you're very wide open to do the hot seat as well. And
Oh, okay. I was like, what am I open for? But I'll leave you with this. I thought I had a good one, like maybe like a month ago, like right after the last call that I was on with both of you guys. I know I wasn't there last time. Right after that, though, like the next day, I went out to see a property. It was a small deal. It wasn't anything big, but I knew the buyer. I knew who my buyer would be already, because he just buys those types of properties. So long story short, I offered we get down to the price, and the woman was stuck on this number. And I did kind of like what Ian's talked about before, what if we couldn't get to that number? What would the next steps be? And we talked through it, and we talked through it, and we talked through it. And at the end of the day, it came down to, we were at a difference of 5,000. I knew what the guy would buy it from me for. So I knew that I wanted to just make it a super quick, smooth, easy deal. And we get down to the difference of the $5,000. And she was like, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. And I was like, okay, I understand. And I was like, so let me ask you, what would you have to think about? We talked through all that stuff. And I jokingly said to her, I was like, I think between the two of us, would you agree that I'm probably the real estate expert? And she said, probably. And I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go outside to my truck. I'm going to walk up and down the block for a minute or two. I'm going to think this whole thing over. I'm going to come back in and let you know what I think would be your best solution. And I was like, so I'll be back in just a minute. And she goes, oh, okay. And I said, I'm just joking. I can promise you when I come back in, I'm going to tell you that you should take the offer. Don't let something as silly as 5K stand between the difference of you and a great day knowing that you sold the place. I said, just my hand's already sticking out. Go ahead and shake it. She started laughing and shook my hand. Said, I can't believe you got me to do this. So I was like, oh, that was fun. Just sometimes you got to keep it light and lively with people too. Remember that people love to laugh. When people are smiling, they're laughing. When they're having a good time, that's when the buying energy and the selling mood is there.
That's great. my favorite equivalent of that was it was a 10K difference. This was Steve trying himself. He was in someone's home, and it was going through. The setup was it was someone wanting to sell out of this far bigger house that had fallen in disrepair to move closer to their grandkids, and the grandkids' name it was like Timmy, and the girl's name, it shocked me. It was like he made her say it again because I didn't hear it. Was Areola, which apparently is a girl's name. Shocked me too, but that was the girl's name. And it was she wanted to be closer to Areola, wanting to do, and Timmy, and wanted to do this forever. And then Steve finally asked, "Is like, I have kind of a direct question. What's the best way to ask you a question that I'm worried will offend you?" Right? He's like, "Just give it to me straight. Just ask me. It's okay. You won't offend me." So now it's lowered the resistance to the chance of it offending them because it's a very, very direct and hard question to ask. Like, it sounds like it's more important for you rather than going to, spend time with your grandkids. You'd rather $10,000 and miss more memories with Timmy and Areola. Am I totally off base with that? And Brian went, "Wow, you're right. Yeah, that's not worth it. Yeah, I know I need to do this."
The old gut punch.
But we got permission. We got permission to ask it. That's the key. If we don't get permission to ask that question, you run the risk of upsetting them. Whoa, that's aggressive. Hey, I have kind of a question. What's the way to ask you this question? I don't want to offend you. It seems really direct. So now they won't get offended when you ask it. So everyone always gets the same answer. Just ask it. Give it to me straight, whatever it is. And now you've got like a hall pass to ask one of those gut punches.
I had a very similar situation to that. I almost feel no, it wasn't. I'm gonna say I think it's even recorded. But I had a woman that was moving down to Sarasota, Florida, to be next to her grandkids and her daughter and son-in-law. She was dead set on going. The grandkids were young. One was a newborn. The other one was like 2 years old. And the woman just kept talking about how she wanted to be down there. And we were at a big difference. We were much more than 10 grand. We were like, I want to say maybe $25,000 difference. But what it ended up breaking down to was I got her to admit that she wants to be there for all of the kids' school activities and all of that stuff. And I was like, so in other words, you're committed to, you really want to be down there for the next 20 years at least to really watch these guys grow. And she's like, yeah. So I said, well, let's just take the $40,000 difference. I said, we're going to divide that out over 20 years. Right. And whatever number we came out to, what is it, $2,000 a year, something like that. And I was like, so now let's take that 2,000 divided by 52. And I'm doing it on my calculator in front of her. And at the end of the day, it came down to where I think it was like $118 is what it would be a month. And I was like, let me honestly ask you, if I came to you every month that you're sitting on the side of the soccer games, you're watching the baseball games, you're sitting at the cheer practices, you're able to go over for dinner. And if that cost you $120 a month, would that be a fair deal? And she was like, yeah, of course. And I said, exactly. So don't let $120 a month for the next 20 years stand between you and doing this deal with me right now. I said, if I could get to your number, I would, but I can't, so I won't. But I can get to this number. And for only $120 difference a month, it seems like a no-brainer. What do you say we do it? And she did it. She went through with it because it was the same type of thing. You take it out of the logic realm and put it into the emotional realm.
That's why I want you to know why he wants to sell, like what he needed the cash for, because that's how you can position everything around feeling like it's solving their issue.
Yes, thank you so much. I really got a really good approach now.
Awesome.
On that note, I just got a Hessel lead in, so I got to go. I got to make some calls. Legitimately, I really just got a Hessel lead in. I'm going to do a call right now to this guy. It says his motivation is a divorce. So,
all right, man.
See what we can make happen. All right. See you guys.
See you guys.
Take care, everyone.